All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. In this video, I'm going to show you how to multiply and divide square roots. All right, so let's get it. All right, so you may find yourself in a situation where you're going to have to multiply or divide by a square root. And it's like, well, how do you do that? So let me show you some quick examples. All right, so let's start off with multiplying. So in general, right, multiplying, it's the most basic multiplication situation is multiplying two things, two numbers. So here we have two integers, right? 2 times 2. We should all know that this is 4. All right. The second example, we have 2 times root 3. All right, we have an integer, right, times a square root of 3. Square root of 3 is an irrational number, right? It's a decimal that never ends. So in this particular case, there's really nothing you can do, right? Like there's no exact number, like a single number that will come out. So the result or the product, if you will, right? You simply put them together, where the 2 becomes the coefficient of root 3. It's implied that there's a 1 in front of the square root. So it's the coefficients times the coefficients, or as I like to say, the outside times the outside. And then at some point, we'll do the inside times the inside. But in this particular situation, we have outside times outside. So 2 times 1, which is basically 2. And then just the square root of 3, right? Because the square root of 3, there's no other square roots. It doesn't get multiplied by anything. It can't combine with anything. The only thing that it becomes is basically a label, right? It's a label for the 2. So this would be 2 root 3. In the third example, the coefficient in front of root 2 is 2, right? So we have 2 root 2 times 2. So the only thing that can be multiplied are the coefficients, right? 2 times 2. 2 times 2 is going to be 4. And the square root, there's no other square roots. So it is just along for the ride. All right. In the fourth example, this is probably the pinnacle of the problem, right? Because we have a number outside and a number inside. The radicand is the part that's inside. So here we multiply outside times outside. This is going to be 2 times 2, which is 4. And then here comes the tricky part. This is where most people get tripped up, is that when you're multiplying square roots, you multiply the part that's inside, the radicand, right? So this is going to be 2 times 3. 2 times 3 is 6. So this would be 2 root 2 times 2 root 3. And the result or product is going to be 4 root 6. Now, typically, what's going to happen is whenever you do this, you always want to make sure that you simplify the part that's inside of the radical. Here, it is already as simple as it can get. So this is just 2 or 4 root 6. All right, if we try slightly more difficult number, so if we do, and I'm purely making this up, so root 6 times, I don't know, 8 root 8. All right, so there are a couple of ways to think about this. If you haven't done so already, I do have a video on simplifying radicals. It is in the How to Geometry series. There's a link in the description if you want to check that out. But here, the two ideas is that we can simplify the part that's under the radical first, or we could do it last. Personally, I like to do it last. That's just me. But we could do it first, or we could do it last. So let's just stick to our comfort zone, right? So I want to do outside times outside. 4 times 8, 32. We'll do inside times inside. So the square root of 6 times 8, which is 48. All right. Now this is the answer. 32 root 48. However, you always want to simplify the part that's inside. Typically we call it prime factorization, right? You want to factor the inside number into its prime numbers by taking out any perfect square roots. So this is going to be, so we'll use prime numbers, right? Prime numbers 2, 3, 5, 7, ... Now we could use perfect squares, right? 4, 9, 25. These will work also. So whichever one you use, it truly doesn't matter, because it's all going to work out the same. So I'm just going to use 2. So 2 goes into 48 24 times. 2 goes into 24 12. 2 goes into 12 6. 2 goes into 6 3 times. All right, now we group together whatever pairs we have. Anything that's a pair, right? All this is still inside of the square root. So we have 2 groups of 2. So this first group, each of these can be taken out of the square root as a single number. And anytime you take one of these numbers out as a single number, it always gets multiplied by whatever coefficient is in front. So in this case, we're bringing out a 2. So 2 times 32, right? 2 times 32 is 64. But we're also bringing out another 2, and it has to get multiplied as well. So 32 times 2, 64, times 2 would be 128. So 32 times 2, 64, times 2 again, 128. Now notice the 3 doesn't have a partner, doesn't have a pair. It cannot leave the square root. It has to stay behind under the square root because there was no pair for it to get removed with. So our simplified and final answer is going to be 128 square root of 3. And this is basically how you multiply square roots. All right, so now let's look at dividing square roots, dividing by a square root. So you find yourself in a situation, I don't know, perhaps you're trying to figure out the sides of a right triangle. And we notice that this triangle is a very particular triangle. This is a 45, 45, 90 special case right triangle. All right, and in this case, we know that if we have the hypotenuse or the leg, we can get to the other one by either multiplying or dividing by root 2. So if I have a leg, I can get to the hypotenuse by multiplying by root 2. And I can get to the leg from the hypotenuse by dividing by root 2. Now, I get it. This is not the purpose of this video, is teaching you triangles. It's how to divide by root 2. So if we know that the hypotenuse, and I'm just throwing some numbers out there, let's say this is 15, and I want to know what the leg is. Well, in this case, we would have to divide by root 2. There's really no other way. Well, there are other ways, but typically you're going to divide by root 2. Otherwise, you'd be using trig, which that's another video. So if I do 15 divided by root 2, this is the length of the leg. Actually, this is the length of both legs. So 15 divided by root 2. However, in math, we really don't like, or at this level of math, we don't like leaving square roots in the denominator, the bottom of a fraction. So the idea is we want to rationalize the denominator, meaning we're going to remove the square root from the denominator every opportunity that we get. So in this case, 15 divided by root 2, the way that we do this, we have to multiply this fraction by another fraction. In fact, anything divided by itself is 1. So what's happening is that we're multiplying this by 1. So we're not changing the value, right? Because anything divided by 1 is itself. However, we're using a clever 1. And in this case, whatever is in the denominator, that's the number that we're going to multiply top and bottom by. So root 2. So when we're multiplying the bottom, just like we just said, inside times inside. So 2 times 2 is 4. So we have the square root of 4. But we know that the square root of 4 is just 2. So anytime we multiply square roots and the radicand is the same, like in this case, 2 times 2, then the product is just the radicand. It's just the inside part because the square roots go away. And then the top, it's very tempting to multiply 15 by 2. It really is. But as we just saw, it's outside times outside, inside times inside. So 15 root 2. Now this is going to go for any number. I don't care what number you pick. So any number, if you divide it by root 2, root 3, root anything, let's just say root n. So recapping, you have a number and you're going to divide it by a square root of some other number. Well, we don't like square roots in the bottom of the fraction. So you're going to have to multiply that fraction, top and bottom, by whatever number is in the denominator, right? Whatever that square root is, that's the thing that you're going to have to multiply top and bottom by. And when you do that, whatever the numbers are on the bottom, by design, the square root's going to go away, and whatever number is inside the square root will definitely be there. And if possible, sometimes it's possible that these two numbers will sometimes reduce, right? Sometimes reduce. Do I want to show you an example? That is the question. All right, so let's just say, so here, like, let's shoot from the hip. So this is going to be 100. I'm going to divide 100 by root 2. So I know I need to multiply this by root 2 because that's what's in the denominator. And this is going to be 2, right? By design, it's going to be 2, 100 root 2. And then here, the 100 and the 2 will cancel, right? Because those two numbers are both outside of the square root. 100 divided by 2 is 50. And then root 2. Okay. And you can literally do this with any numbers. So hopefully this clears up some things. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to subscribe, like, comment, let me know what you think, and I'll see you in the next video.